Hey, are we live? It's saying we're live. I don't know if we actually are. I don't see a picture underneath. Oh, no, it's showing up. There it is. That's very delayed. I'm not going to look at that anymore. Okay, so we're live. I'm going to go ahead and send the tweet now that says I am live on YouTube, so you guys can check that out if you are, I don't know, busy and want to catch up later. Um, yeah, this is kind of, oh, hey, wow, there's a lot of people here. That's like super awesome. You guys, how's the audio? So tell me what the audio is like. It's going to be a little delayed, but let me know what you think about the audio so I can change that up front because I have no idea what it sounds like, to be completely honest with you. Um, I also don't know how delayed the chat is, so we'll see about that. Audio is off. Audio is good, little quiet, little delayed. Okay, I'm just gonna. Most of you say it's fine, so I'll just leave it. Good, that's my first attempt. That's not bad. If it is a little delayed, that's probably a YouTube thing or a network thing. I'm on school internet, so it's not the greatest, but at least it's wired and not wireless. Don't even attempt in this campus to go online via wireless LAN. That's not an option here. So, with that, is it delayed for real? Or are y'all trolling? I have no idea if you're trolling. Perfect now. Okay, I don't know. If it's not synchronized, that's not something I can control. That's the difference in the. That's just the network delay. So, I want to start hearing some. I guess looking at some questions here. McLevin's not here. Sorry about that. He's back home. He's in Florida. He's got school in Florida. But we are trying to get things sorted out on Entertainment Studio. So you guys, that's actually showing up on the search now. It used to be you type in Entertainment Studio and the channel name wouldn't come up on the search bar, whatever, in YouTube. But now it does. We're actually like on the grid, so you can find us there. First question: how old am I? I'm 21 years old. My birthday is in October, so I'll be 22 soon. So there we go. That's the first question. That wasn't that hard, was it, folks? Hi to Brazil. Hi, Brazil. I saw your comment. It's already gone. I can't keep up with all of these. You guys are awesome, but there's so many like comments. It's hard to. Favorite TV show? Come on, Breaking Bad. That was the best TV show I ever watched. I tried a few episodes of Game of Thrones back when I had a good friend who had Netflix, and I used that subscription to watch shows, and I really didn't. I don't know. I didn't bite the bait like a lot of people did with that one. It's just all preferential. Like I said, most things are, but Breaking Bad was my favorite show. Z170 Stinger, worth it? That's the EVGA one, right? I'm pretty sure. I'm gonna sound really stupid if it's not. I'm pretty sure that's the EVGA motherboard. As far as I'm aware, I don't really think that board is. I think there's only one offering from EVGA for that board, and it's Z170 Stinger. I think that's the only one they offer. They just started. They just started getting into the motherboard market. And I'd have to look at it a little more before I recommend a motherboard like that. Let's see. Hi from Queens, New York. Hello from Lafayette, Louisiana. What are your glasses prescription? I have no idea. I'm like virtually blind. I can't see anything without my glasses. Past about arm's length away, so I'm definitely nearsighted. But yeah, I wouldn't be able to read speed limit signs until like I already passed them. It's that bad. S340 versus Genome case. Let's see. I really like the Genome case for a different reason than I like the S340 case. So the S340 case is super clean. That's like I don't know. I just like the clean look of S340s. But the Genome does have, it has larger radiator support. It has its own custom water loop. It looks different. It's a different look, so you have to just kind of play it out by ear. Which one you think looks better? Do you like a cleaner, more refined look, or do you like a busier, just unique look? Because there's not many cases look like the Genome out there. Hi from Scotland. Hi from Finland. You guys are awesome. Thanks for watching from across the sea, the ocean. That's really cool. Sweden, another Sweden. Hi from Switzerland. Awesome. How did McLovin and I meet? So, McLovin and I we go way back. Well, not really back. We're probably, I think 13, 14. I don't know. He probably knows. We were in middle school. He showed up in, I think it was 6th grade. I want to say it was 6th grade. He's gonna hit me if I say this wrong. I think it was sixth grade, and we were in history class, and I saw him sitting down. He was sitting at this table by himself because he had just moved here from, I think, Melbourne. Cocoa Beach was where he was in Florida before, and he kind of just looked a little silly over there by himself. He had these like transition glasses on and the same long hair that he used to have before he shaved half of it off. But he had these glasses on. They looked almost like mine, but they were still dark. So like he'd been outside. So it looked like he was wearing these weird like hippie sunglasses inside. So he left an impression. But he's pretty much been the same person he's been since middle school, which is really cool. A lot of people change in high school, and he really didn't. He didn't let people's opinions of him change the way he acted, which is really cool. So I respect that about him. Who are your favorite tech tubers? What time is it over there? It's 3:00 p.m. here. My favorite tech tubers. I really like Vsauce. Vsauce was a cool channel that I got into early on. That was much earlier than when I started the channel. I really like Linus Tech Tips. That was one of the ones that got me kind of into the computer thing. I actually learned how to build a lot of computers from his channel, so I owe a big thanks to him for that, and the guys over there. Let's see, Jay's 2 cents. I like Jay's approach when it comes to PC building, the way he describes things. Trying to think of others here. Something that's not... Let's see. Oh, I like Grade A Under A. He's a cool dude. That guy, he really does make things interesting. Like he can take a topic that appears bland on the surface and turn it into something that is just like from a totally different perspective. I don't know. It has nothing to do with science per se, but I really like his channel. It's just very entertaining. What do you think about the new CPU architectures? I'm not sure if we're talking about Intel or AMD, but you're probably talking about Kaby Lake and a few others. I honestly haven't been following that very much. I really haven't. I have to be honest. I haven't been following the Zen very much past the time that I uploaded my original Zen video. I was aware of how many cores, the multi-threading support, all of that. But after I did the IPC calculations stuff, I kind of figured out Zen's going to be around Haswell, Skylake performance instructions per clock is what IPC is. So that's basically how many. I'm trying to simplify it here. It's basically how powerful a single core is per clock. I'm not going to get into it in the Q&A, but it basically measures the strength of a single core of a CPU. That's severe simplification, but Zen's going to be around Haswell performance from what I've seen so far. Others might disagree, but that's why I haven't been too peppy about Zen recently, just because I kind of have an idea of where it's going to fall in line, and being that we're in 2016 now and Haswell was released several years ago, it's kind of disappointing. So I don't know, who knows, maybe I'll get my hands on one later on. I'm sure I will, and we'll see if things change. Should I be worrying about static electricity? I live in Chicago. I don't know, it depends on the humidity. I don't have to worry about that down here because it's freaking humid as heck down here. There's so much water in the air. The chance of I don't know, bringing on some kind of static charge in an environment like this is very low. But if you live somewhere where it's very dry, where that static can become a problem, yeah, I do recommend, wearing some kind of anti-static wristband, or at least not building on carpet like I usually do, even though I don't tell you guys that I do. Most of the time it's on carpet. I don't like standing on cold wood or cold laminate flooring. Like your microphone setup, Greg. Thanks, man. This is it's a Blue Yeti microphone. It's not the XLR one, whatever it's called. This is just the USB to computer one. It cost like $100 when I bought it. I have a Neewer. Oh, it says it right here. Neewer arm stand, whatever you call this, and the little pop filter. I know there's a built-in pop filter. There's a piece of fuzz right there. I know there's a built-in pop filter in the mic, but it never hurts to double down, especially when I'm this close to it, so you hear a lot of pop sounds. Just trying to help you guys out. Will you do a review of the Deepcool 240EX? I guess. I don't really know. I guess, do you want to know the temperatures? What kind of temperatures you'd expect to see compared to something like an X61? I guess I could do that, although it wouldn't really be a fair comparison because the X61 is a 280 millimeter rad and the 240EX is a 240 millimeter. So I might have to find something else that's kind of mainstream that's in the 240 variant and then compare it to that. So when I do get that, Yeah, I can put together something like that. I don't really think I've done a head-to-head AIO water cooler comparison before, so that'll be interesting. If you ever visit Austin, Texas, I'm in Florida. No, I'm in Lafayette right now. GTX 1050. Haven't been following it honestly. I used to be up to date on these things. I don't really follow that kind of stuff anymore. When Pascal first came out, yeah, that was a big deal. I was pretty much on top of my game then. But right now, it's kind of just to the wayside. I'm more focused on other things right now, especially when it comes to the channel. Are you planning on going to the next CES? No, I don't think so. Not unless they get a sponsor, which I doubt is going to happen anytime soon. So probably not. I'm not really a big fan of paying money to see things. Just getting to see things. I know a lot of people get their kicks out of that, but I'm not one to just pay to look at stuff. I want to own it. I'd rather pay to have the product than pay to go and see the product and then come back and report to you guys about what I saw. What Intel CPU would you recommend for a 1080p gaming rig paired with an RX 470? Well, I'm pretty sure you could pull off 1080p with an i3, but I would opt for a cheaper i5, something like an i5 6400, 6500 if you want the higher clock speed. That is going to be more future-proof, and so all you would have to do in the event that you ever wanted to game in 1440p or even some light MMORPG kind of. That was like water sprayed on the window. That was weird. Even some like light 4K gaming, that i5 should be okay in some 4K games and most 1440p games. All you'd have to do is upgrade your graphics card. So that's why I'd recommend the i5. But if you don't have the budget for that, there's like no way you can make it happen. Get an i3 6100, 6300, and you'll be okay. What's your favorite? My favorite multiplayer game. I don't really know. Multiplayer. Well, like where you can just play online with other people. I like playing GTA 5. That's really fun because you can do whatever you want. That's kind of it's been out for a while, but I tend to like pick 1 or 2 games a year and just stick with those like the whole time. And that's kind of why I haven't changed my benchmarking library very much. Like I have to pay for these games out of pocket. Most tech tubers will get sent these games or they'll get coupon codes, I'm pretty sure. But all of these I pay 100% out of pocket for. So if I buy the game, it's going to be because I want to play it most of the time, not because I want to benchmark it. So yeah, I'm just not floating in cash right now. Let's see. What was your first PC? First PC, I talked about that in the part 1 of the Q&A series. That was it was an i3 4150 with for some reason, I don't really think I knew what I was doing at the time, a Z97 MSI Gaming Pro motherboard, I want to say. I have a picture of it on Twitter, so you can check that out. You have to scroll super far down. And then I paired that originally with a 750 Ti, and then I upgraded to an R7 470 shortly after, R7 370 shortly thereafter, just because I realized the 750 wasn't going to pull its weight for the resolution I was hoping to game in. So, what's up with the dabs? I have no idea what that's about. There's a lot of dabs. There's a lot of dabs. What do you think about the Chinese brand smartphones? Sorry, I can't read that. Not quick enough. Too many dabs. That camera behind me, that's the Panasonic. Wow, Lumix FZ1000. So it's got a fixed lens. It shoots in 4K 30 FPS at 100 megabits per second, 1080p 60 FPS at I don't remember what the megabit per second bitrate is on that, but I usually film in either 1080 60 or 4K at 30, and it depends on what I'm doing. If I'm showcasing like a particular product and I have a lot of close-ups and stuff, I'll do mainly 4K just to get the higher detail. But when it's just me talking or moving around or vlogging, 1080p 60, it looks better. It's more fluid, especially when the camera's moving back and forth or if I'm moving back and forth. Bring Kyle in. What's up? How did you know? I guess, have y'all met Kyle before? That's my other brother. He's just sleeping on the couch right now. It's a very boring day, so I'm kind of glad that I chose today for the Q&A session. I answered them how McLevin and I met. I answered that earlier on, so for whoever just posted that one, just scroll back. I think we have like 4 hours of recording, so you can scroll back on the live and then catch back up if you want. Again, if the audio is out of sync, like that's nothing I can change. I can't do that. That has to do with the network connection, internet connection. I can't change that. No. Let's see. $600 PC build. Okay, so this is something I wanted to show you guys. A lot of you are just saying dab, so I don't know what that's about. If you're gonna keep saying dab, I'm not gonna look at the chat anymore. So I have like, let me turn the thing over. Okay. So, whoops, the wrong one. Let's see. Did I do it? Can't tell. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So we are looking at a lot of my old builds on PC Part Picker. So this goes way back. This goes back to when, like, before I even started the channel. But these are just some things that I was playing around with when I was just starting out, looking at building PCs. I have tons of these just because I built a lot of them over the past year, but I also was just interested in seeing what I could get for the price. Now, a lot of these prices have come down. So you look at like this one right here, $1,400 budget build. I couldn't, for some reason, at this point in time, this 6700K wasn't available. I think it was sold. It was released, but you couldn't purchase it on Amazon or Newegg. So I went with the 6600K. And you see the total at the time was about $1,400, actually a little bit over that. But now it's only $1,200, and well, that's without the Cooler Master Glacier. Okay, well that's probably why. One of the reasons why. But it's just kind of cool to go back through some of these and see how far the prices have dropped over time. So let's see, what was that? 8-core AMD build. It's like $600. See, I got an R9 380 in there. Some of these I'm probably ashamed about now. I haven't looked through all of these yet. Little mini ITX HTPC build. So yeah, couple of that. I actually did a video on that, I'm pretty sure. Let's see, the i7 5820K build. Well, it's cheap because you can't price the motherboard. Motherboard's about $150, $200. So actually, is that the revised 1.0? I don't know if it is. That's about $200 motherboard, and then about $80 worth of DDR4. So 280. It's about 1,080, 1,100. But that's only with an R9 380. See, I had to compromise there. I tried to keep it around $1,000, I'm pretty sure. So that's why I included that card. I have a video of that up on the channel as well. This was back when the base clock overclock thing was a big deal. i7 6700 non-K, and then for some reason the Gil Super Loose the price was never showing up. So add another $70, $80 on top of this price. But with this, you could overclock the non-K CPU and then basically turn it into a 6700K. But now at this point, you can buy a 6700K for like $310. So that's really, yeah, it's kind of redundant at this point. Let's check back over here at it seems that the dabs calmed down a bit. Is the R9 380 a good purchase now that we know the RX 480? Well, I don't really think it's a good purchase unless you can get it for a lot cheaper than the RX 480. I mean, I don't really see that justified unless you can buy the RX or the R9 380 for about $130, $140. Because I know you can get the RX 480 for about $200, $240 depending on the VRAM variant. But I would just go for the RX 480 unless you can get the R9 380 pretty cheap. Should I get the 1060 and keep my 1080p, or get the 1070, wait a year or two? I don't understand. Zen reviews coming. Well, Zen reviews are going to come when they're released. I've already done a video covering Zen in general. I don't really feel like revisiting that without having something on hand. So let's see. Should we still buy Haswell? No, that's actually something I wanted to address in PC Part Picker. So let me go back to that. So, okay, let's go down here. Okay, so this is a bare bones Skylake rig right here. This is if you wanted an i5 rig with a decent GPU, it's an R9 380, and you change that to an RX 480 right now if you want for around the same price. You see I had to manually input that price. But you can get a bare bones i5 light 1440p, decent 1440p gaming rig for about $600 if you're willing to compromise on some other things. But look, I still included an SSD, and I still included a 1 terabyte hard disk drive for general storage. So that's not a bad price at all. And this is just for hardware, not the software, the peripherals, or anything like that. Keep that in mind. Now, if you went over to Haswell, literally almost nothing changes. So other than the fact that we switched the CPU and the platform, the chipset, different motherboard, that's really the only thing that changes. So everything else is pretty much the same. So you see 616.41 US dollars, 606.38 US dollars. So unless you can find a significant cut in price to go with Haswell over Skylake, I really don't see the point in opting for a Haswell platform anymore, because Skylake prices have adjusted, and because of that, I would recommend Skylake in almost all cases. 1060 or RX 480. Well, we kind of discussed that in the live session I did with Joker Productions. So this kind of ties back to the performance of DirectX 11 and DirectX 12. The 1060 doesn't have that hardware-based asynchronous compute capability yet. And I discussed that also in the arrangements of CUDA cores within NVIDIA GPUs, and that kind of plays a role there, the shader allocations, all of that. So at this point, I would say that the RX 480 is probably your best bet for future-proofing a computer. But there are cases in which the 1060 is the better card. It depends on the title. So it's just going to come down to what you personally think. i7 or i3 for Harambe is all over the place. This is nice. I love the channel. Appreciate it. What's your opinion on buying used? I guess you could buy used if you want. Of course, you are taking on that added risk of not necessarily being able to guesstimate the longevity of the part you're buying. I will say that as long as you can, let's say you want to buy a graphics card from a guy on Craigslist. It's a used GTX 970 EVGA super clocked for, I don't know, like $180, something like that. If you're planning on buying that kind of card, what I recommend you do, and this is hard to rearrange it's difficult to trust people on Craigslist, especially people you don't know. Test the card out. So put the card, either see it running in his rig. Chances are he has a computer he can run it in because he's selling the card, or have him come over somewhere where you guys can both safely be somewhere where you can test the card out before you purchase it. Don't buy it on the spot. A card could look perfectly fine and then end up not working at all. So just to have that peace of mind, always double check that the card works up front, because the chances are, if the card's not working and he knows that it's not when you buy it from him, you probably won't be able to get in contact with him ever again, unless you live in like some small town. So how long do you think it'll be waiting for the new Intel processors? 2017. That's what they say. There's gonna be some release soon, but I don't know. 2017 for the most part. Will an i3 and 44? I can't keep up with these. Will an i3 6100 and RX 460 be good for 1080p gaming? Sure, that's a decent combo. Don't expect to max things out in 1080p, but you should be able to game in 1080p without a hitch. I would say moderate 1080p gaming, even AAA titles, you should be all right. How do you feel about the rumors of? I'm not gonna read that. Let's see. What's an ideal amount of fans to have inside the P400? I like to fill up all fan slots. I don't like having empty fan slots. It just looks weird. It looks like the computer is not completed. So fill them up as much as possible. Just tweak the fan RPMs within the BIOS or with some, I don't know, like fan controlling software. But I like to put as many as I can in there. I know there is a law of diminishing returns when it comes to fans, but with that said, I mean, there is a degree of you want your PC to look good, and I don't think that a PC looks good if there's just gaps everywhere. Where that should be a fan there. What happened to that fan? Even though you just didn't intend to put the one there in the first place. So fill them up. Make sure the PC looks good. The more fans, in my case, the better. As long as you can get them for cheap. Don't overpay for fans unless you want those really nice, quiet Noctua fans or something along those lines. What is your favorite McDonald's meal? I'm the kind of guy who orders nothing but food off of the dollar menu. So as long as I get a dollar menu, I'll just get some spicy chicken sandwiches and some fries and call it a day. Yeah. Good question. Favorite food? That's a tough one. I guess I should go back to, unless you want to keep looking at that. So my favorite food is probably, I don't know, I like steak. Steak's pretty good. Let's see, something like a I don't know. I like a classical sirloin, um, something like steamed broccoli on the side, French fries, steak fries, something like that. I like those kinds of meals. Those are pretty good. Uh, I Do you think it's worth getting i5 6500 without a GPU? I would get a 960 or something a few months later. I mean, yeah, if you need a computer to do things that aren't related to gaming, yeah, build a computer without a graphics card. Use the integrated, Intel HD graphics. I think it's 530 Intel HD graphics with Skylake processors. Just that'll get you by. You can watch YouTube videos, do all that good stuff. You can even game on it if you wanted, but I wouldn't recommend doing that in the long term. So yeah, if you plan on getting a graphics card later on, no problem. As long as your intent up front is not to game until you get that dedicated graphics card, you won't be disappointed with the performance of your system otherwise. Let's see. Let's see. GTX 1070 or two RX 480s. I've always kind of shied away from Crossfire and SLI as if I can help it. That's just kind of from my experience with Crossfire and LSI. There are always those underlying bugs that you can't really get rid of. And I've had several friends tell me that if they could do it all over again, they would just purchase one graphics card instead of two weaker graphics cards. So in that particular instance, I would recommend just a single GTX 1070. That has nothing to do with green versus red, my preference. That's just from my experience and from secondhand accounts of the behaviors of cross-fired cards and SLI cards. Go with the single GPU option if you can help it. If you can't, for some reason, you'll be okay with two cards, but I would recommend one under most cases. How do you think about the GTX 1050? I don't know really much about it, but I'm sure that it's going to be targeted towards, I don't know, those who would consider the RX 460 otherwise. That's just kind of where I think NVIDIA is going to target next, even though I'm sure they planned this beforehand. Let's see, is gold PSU rating worth it over bronze? Yeah, if you want to save like $5 a year, that's not really a real estimate, but like it's gonna sound probably quieter. It's not the fans probably not gonna be as loud. It will be just more efficient in general. So it's just basically how efficient your PSU is with allocating power, and going for a gold over a bronze in most cases it's not gonna make much of a difference at all. It might affect things like PSU longevity, which is something you consider on a separate basis. But if you're just looking at how stable your PC is, for the most part, as long as you're supplying an adequate amount of power to your peripherals and your cards and CPUs, that's going to be really all that matters. And in most cases, that's what I just look for. I look for, well, this has enough wattage, it's from a good brand, it's not just a crap PSU that was made in God knows where, and it just ended up on Amazon. So buy it from a reputable brand and make sure it comes with a warranty. Chances are you'll be okay. As for the money you'll be saving with gold over bronze, not justified in my book, especially if it means paying a premium, which is how it is in most cases. RX 480 versus 1060. At this point, I already answered that, but I'd just say RX 480. That's just me. Call me a fanboy, whatever. RX 480 looks to be the more promising of the two cards at this point. Favorite subject in school? Well, like general subject, I mean, science is obviously like my favorite general subject, but I really like astronomy and I really like physics. Those are the two things that really, those were my passions when I was a lot younger, and as a result, I've always had the curiosity, like a curiosity to learn things that even aren't related to astronomy and physics anymore. But that's what really got me into computers too, that drive. So like I used to have friends that had these really cool looking computers and be like, man, I wonder if I could do that, and if I could like teach myself about all these different components inside. Pretty much now you can like show me a picture of your PC and I can pretty much tell you what you got inside. But like 6 months ago, that wouldn't have been the case. So I learned quickly about these things, and it's because I do have a passion for learning things that I know nothing about. So I guess that's kind of where my passion is derived, and it all comes back to the fact that I was really interested in astronomy and physics science topics when I was a lot younger. Do you recommend the i3 4170 for gaming? I've had it before. Or I had the i3 4150. Not the best GPU for gaming. I would recommend an i5 over an i3. I have a video covering the differences, by the way. A game like GTA 5 benefits greatly from a true quad-core CPU. And remember, a hyper-threaded dual-core does not mean that it has 4 physical cores. It's the efficiency of allocation. So it's the scheduler. It's how the scheduler sends information to be processed. It's more efficient with hyperthreading because it knows exactly when to send information through 2 lanes. Whereas on a true quad core, you don't have to worry about that. There's no data backup. It's just flowing through 4 lanes, and that's games that are optimized properly for 4 cores, like GTA 5 is, and I'm sure games like City Skyline and other CPU intensive games will benefit greatly from the i5. So work the i5 in there if you can. i3 is going to be okay, but trust me, after a while, especially if you game a lot, you're going to be longing for something a bit more powerful. Let's see. Oh, there's more comments below. Whoops. 1440. I saw one. That's something that was good. That was good. 1440p, 1080p, or sorry, 144 hertz 1080p versus 1440p 60 hertz. Which one would you recommend? Okay, this is preferential as well, but I would say, Mr. Brandon, that it depends on the game. It's clearly. So if you're playing a game like, I don't know, let's just take CSGO because that's the one everyone uses. So CSGO is going to play and look much better for most people on a higher refresh rate monitor, and in most cases a smaller monitor too, because you don't have to cover as much distance when you scroll. So it depends on the game. I would say for a game like Grand Theft Auto, which I play a lot, I don't make any secret of that. I would go for the higher resolution. In a game like that, the detail, it just looks so much better in 1440p and 4K, that much better than that. So just ask yourself what kinds of games you expect to be playing, and then base your monitor decision around that, and make sure that you have the CPU and GPU horsepower to back it up. So 144 frames per second is going to take a significant toll on your CPU. So keep that in mind. Make sure you have something to back that up. An i5, most definitely, for modern AAA titles, even in 1080p, I would recommend an i5 for that. If you pair something like an i3 6100 with a GTX 1080, your CPU, you're going to be CPU bound in almost all cases with a high refresh rate monitor. So keep those things in mind. Just depends on the game, and it depends on what you're sporting in your rig. Let's see. Scroll down. I'm getting better at this. I'm getting better. I know there's these awkward delays when it comes to me looking at these comments, but I appreciate all the comments. Very nice. Opinion on Chinese brand smartphones like OnePlus. As far as I've never owned a OnePlus, but apparently they're super good phones. I mean, like, to me, it doesn't matter where it's manufactured as long as it's got a good feel in the hand and it's properly optimized. The software is good, and things like the camera, the UI. If all of that feels good to me and it works, I don't care where it's from. I don't care if it's a brand nobody's ever heard of. I mean, and a lot of times you're paying for just the brand name. Oh, I own an iPhone, or oh, I own a Samsung. Not to rip on any of those companies, but you are paying a small premium for the name. And that's something that I always take into account, because I never buy the best and the latest. Look, I'm sporting a Galaxy Note 4 that I bought on eBay. I've never been a fan of paying $700 for a brand new smartphone, because it depreciates almost immediately. So you paid $700 for a smartphone. 6 months later, it's only worth $450. I'm not a fan of that. I'm always thinking in terms of like money, like where am I going to lose the most money, and then I avoid that route and tend to just make compromises along the way. 6700 or 6600K depends on what you're doing. If you're just playing games, save the extra money. Just go with the 6600K. If you plan on doing a lot of streaming, I don't know, a lot of editing, content creation, go with the 6700. Even if you don't plan on overclocking it using the base clock method with the Z170 motherboard, you're going to benefit from the added threads. So go with the i7 if you're into content creation, live streaming while you're gaming. If you're just going to be gaming, not worried about anything else, 6600K is the better option. Let's see. The winners of the giveaways will be announced. The one for the RX 480s is tonight. I said that in the last video. you obviously didn't watch the video all the way through, my friend. So those two will be announced at sometime tomorrow because the giveaway ends at midnight tonight. And then also the winners of the two Deep Cool 240EX Captain AIO water coolers will also be announced tomorrow. And I will do so probably in a separate video just to announce the winners. So not gonna be probably anything science related in it, but just so that everyone can see who won in case you don't have a Twitter or any, even though you needed a Twitter enter the, well, I guess I might just do it on Twitter. I don't know, it depends. I'll see. But yeah, those will be announced by the end of today, or by the end of tomorrow, excuse me. Favorite movie? I really like Interstellar. That's a cool movie. That's, it's like an astronomy physics type movie. You don't see too many of those. It mainly, I think my personal opinion about this is that I don't think you see too many of those types of movies because they are a bit not just far-fetched, but the science behind them is difficult for a lot of people to understand, or they're just not willing to understand it. So when they were explaining things like gravitational time dilation and velocity time dilation, those are things that, that's general and special relativity. That stuff is not for a layman. You have to, physicists spend their whole lives understanding these things and quantifying these things and physical equations and numbers. So it's difficult. And every now and then you see in the movie where the one guy will like try to explain it in a simple term. Like when the guy folds the paper and is like, this is the wormhole. And he pushes the pencil through the paper. Those are oversimplifications, but they get the point across. You don't see too many directors, too many producers, and movies in general trying to do that for the sake of not losing the audience. So I actually like those kinds of movies because even if I don't understand what I'm watching in the movie, afterwards, back to the curiosity thing, I will make it a point to figure out what they were talking about in the movie afterwards. Then you learn a thing or two too, so that's always nice. What's your opinion on Pascal laptops? So this is actually something that I wanted to address. So Pascal laptops were just released. You can actually, on Amazon already, you can buy these. So I'm going to swap over to Amazon real quick. We're going to go to, let's see, I'm starting to get better at this. I've actually been looking for a laptop, and I want you guys to kind of throw some ideas out. This is not, I'm not looking at these laptops here. This is just what came up when I typed in laptop. So I'm going to give you guys like a starting point. I've been looking around. Let's see. I really like, I'm probably going to get some flack for this, but I really like this style of laptop. I really like the Razer Blade Stealth, the 12.5-inch screen. That's like the perfect size. So it's an Ultrabook basically. It actually says Ultrabook right there. And it's super portable. It's not the best when it comes to content. I wouldn't recommend this for either gaming nor content creation. But I am starting to find myself in need for this kind of laptop when I'm not in the studio. So especially when we're on trips like in Atlanta, it would have been much better, even though it still wouldn't have been ideal, to edit on this versus on my Lenovo 100S, which can't even freaking run Movie Maker very well. So let's see. I want to hear what you guys think. MSI Stealth. Okay, so here's the other thing. I don't want a really bulky laptops. Remember, Ultrabook. We got to keep it within the realm of Ultrabook. I don't want anything thicker than like 0.7 inches or whatever that is in metric. It's like, yeah, I want something thin and portable and under or around 13 inches screen size. So I don't like gamers laptops. They're too bulky. They look ugly in my opinion. You can get like those Alienware laptops and those MSI gaming laptops that are like this thick. Like I'm not a big fan of that. So I want something thin. Surface Book. I looked at that. I don't really. I'll bring it up just so people can see. So I actually watched. Let's see. Yeah, I actually watched the review of this actually on. Was this the one that Linus reviewed? I'm pretty sure Linus reviewed this one on his channel. And I actually watched this video, and after watching the video, I decided that this was not the laptop for me. So I made my mind up very quickly on this one. This wasn't ideal. It's not something that I'm looking forward to content create with. Let's see. I looked at Dell XPS 13. That's a good one. Let's see. Someone else said the Alienware 13. So let's do Dell XPS 13, and I know the XPS 13 is beautiful. Okay, see this one right here, I can already tell you, too thick. Doesn't look, I'm super picky. How thick is this? Let's see. Sometimes the pictures are misleading. Yeah, 1.1 inches, not going to cut it, man. I need like half that thickness. All right. I'm super picky, like I said. Now the XPS 13, I love this because this is like the edge-to-edge screen, right? And let's see, I would get something. I want an i7, but these are so darn expensive. This one is not bad. But okay, so you see that profile? Check that profile out. That's a good looking profile, right? Nice and thin. It's slightly inclined, which is good for typing. And that edge-to-edge display, you can't really tell in that picture. Let's go to this one. So if you haven't seen a review of an XPS 13 before, the real selling point, I can't. Oh wow, I can't hover over the screen to enlarge the image. That edge-to-edge display is a huge selling point for the XPS lineup. So that's something I've considered. Let's see, a Lenovo Edge 2. Some of these I haven't heard of, so Lenovo Edge 2. Let's see. Oh yeah, this one I have looked at. Let's see. That's a good thin profile. What size? At 15.6 inches. Too big. Like I said, I'm looking for something 14 inches or less. So keep that in the realms. Let's see. Lenovo Yoga 710, Yoga 900. Let's see. I think I've looked at the Yoga 710 before. Is this the? Oh no, is this? Oh, that's the same one. That's I just looked up the same one again. Pretty sure the 900 is larger. Uh, let's see. Oh no, it's smaller than 900. Okay, let's see. i7. It's not bad looking. Does it come with an HDMI port? HDMI port's kind of like something that I would really like to have in these. Anyway, that QHD plus resolution, that's beautiful. That's like practically 4K, almost. It's almost 4K. And then, of course, none of these are going to have, for the most part, none of them are going to have dedicated graphics processors. So we're going to be using integrated graphics here. Like I said, I'm not going to be gaming on this thing, but I am interested in editing with it. So I know it's not ideal, but when I'm away, I don't want a bulky laptop. I want something thin. I'm willing to make that compromise for the sake of having. I'm willing to make the compromise of having long render times and having to edit in like 1/8 resolutions for the sake of having a small laptop. That is a compromise I'm willing to make. So anyway, that's yeah. MacBook, probably not going to happen. Sorry, that's not going to happen. Oh, I meant to type this in. I meant to send this, but I didn't send it. There's my comment. You guys see my comment? There it is. Thanks for being here. You guys are already asking questions. Thanks. Pineapple on pizza? No, man. Pineapple on pizza? I saw the Razer Blade 14, too expensive. I'm looking for around, I think at the most I would ever spend on a laptop is about $1,200. Otherwise, I'd be willing to wait for, till later. I'd also like to thank you guys I'm trying to look, see if you guys can see that. Yep. So you guys sent a ton of comments to the Twitter handle. Thank you for that. So these are all of your questions. I had to scroll down quite a ways, but these are a lot of your questions on Twitter. And I tried to answer a few of them in Q&A part 1, first ever gaming PC. So that was the i360 or i3-4150, 750 Ti. What inspired you to make Minute Science YouTube videos at first, but gradually changing to tech-related content? So when I was in school. I'm trying to think. I was in school last summer, not this past summer in the Northern Hemisphere, but the summer before that. I was taking 13 credit hours. I want to say it was 5 classes, so it was 4 legit classroom classes and then 1 lab for 1 credit. So that's 3, 6, 9, 12. Yeah, 13. So I had a lot of free time, a lot of downtime, and I decided what I was going to do was start a YouTube channel because there was really nothing else to do. I mean, believe it or not, taking 13 credit hours like in the summers, that's a lot of work. That's what a lot of people told me was going to be a lot of work, especially when you're an engineer. Like I was taking drilling fluids, statics, mechanics, circuits, Econ 430, which is like a industrial economic finance type class, and then drilling fluids lab. But believe it or not, I had a lot of free time, and unlike my my other brother right now has been complaining because he's like, I have nothing to do here. This is his first year in college, so he's just now kind of getting used to things. There's really a lot of downtime in college, and your workload is, even though you're taking harder classes, I would say, especially when you're like studying your particular major, like your junior and senior year, it doesn't take up your whole day like high school does. When you go in at 8 o'clock or something like that, you don't get out till 3. You're stuck in high school till then, like 8 to 3, 8 to whatever. If you play sports afterwards, that's even more time that you're dedicating somewhere else. So your day's pretty much done for on the weekdays in high school. But when you get to college, you do find yourself with a lot more free time. And I, rather than getting invested in things that I really don't think would be beneficial to me in the long run, I decided to make a YouTube channel to kind of just explore other people's minds and figure out what they were thinking about certain topics that interested me, particularly in astronomy and physics. That's what got me into Vsauce and stuff too. I was into them, but I really started watching like a lot of Vsauce videos that summer, 2 summers ago, and ultimately ended up doing PC stuff after I realized that, well, there was a huge demand for PC gaming content, even though the market's saturated. There's so many tech channels on YouTube, so many of them, and a lot of them end up getting pushed under the wayside just because there are so many of them out there. So you have to set yourself apart somehow. That's what I've tried to do with Science Studio. I've tried to make it not just about PC gaming and PC building, because there are so many channels that already do that and that are already successful. So in this case, it just kind of came down to, well, there's a huge demand for PC gaming, so I'll do that for the sake of growing the channel. But at the same time, I want to touch back on my roots every now and then and do something just strictly science related, like the Minute Science episode, The Scale of Everything. That was just something I put together because I was interested in it. How many Burj Khalifas does it take to get to space? Like that's kind of cool. How many Mount Everest does it take to get into space? So yeah, that kind of stuff is just, it's not really relevant in most cases, but it's interesting to me, and that's something I like to learn and like to tell other people about, because we all have to learn it from somebody or from something. Let's see. Asus Strix RX 480, MSI Gaming X RX 480, or okay. Well, I mean that just depends. Honestly, I'll be completely honest with you guys. There are some graphics card variants that are either higher clocked or quieter or cooler in general or bigger. I go with the one that looks the best, frankly. I mean, like, the way I look at it is it's going to be like a prominent feature in my case. Every case I buy has a window. It's going to have a window. That's how it's going to be. So I want it to look good, and if it doesn't already look good the way it is, I'll do something to make it look good. In most cases, I'll just paint the thing. So for my GPU choice, if I know, let's say I know I'm going to get a 1070. All right, I know that's what I want. So I can go with MSI, Asus, Gigabyte, Zotac. I have all these different brands, right? What I'll do, and I'm not even joking, this is not a scientific approach at all, so just be wary of that. I will look at all of them and I will say, this one looks the best. I'm going to look at this one first. I'll look at it, I'll see what the stock frequencies are out of the box, kind of get an estimate for how much power draw we're talking, heat dissipation, how loud it's going to be. In that case, I might refer to other reviews on YouTube about those particular cards, and then predominantly make up my mind based on how the card looks. And the way I see it is, if the card's not clocked the way you want it to be clocked out of the box, overclock the thing, and you'll very quickly find how far that card will overclock. And in most cases, with aftermarket coolers, with those third-party PCBs, you're going to have similar overclocking potential on most cards. So in the case of the ROG Asus Strix card that I have here, the 1070, I painted it white. It has 3 coolers, 3 fans, which is really nice. A beefy cooler in general, a lot of aluminum fins, or I don't know, nickel-plated copper. I'm not sure. I don't know. And then it has LEDs. Looks awesome. And I said, yeah, that's the one. The second choice was probably the MSI one. MSI makes very good cards. I've had MSI cards in the past. I would have painted that one white too, by the way. And then the third one's probably the EVGA one, just because that one kind of already fit the color scheme up front. So that's kind of what I go through. That's just it. It's just aesthetic. Whichever one's the most aesthetically pleasing for me is what I go with. 2.1 or 5.1 for computer speakers. I have 5.1, even though the other 2 speakers are way back there that I can never really hear unless I'm playing a game like Black Ops 3. That's just me. You can spend your money on it if you want, but what is a good Z170 motherboard? Depends on what you want to spend, how much money you want to spend. You can get a decent, you can get a Gigabyte G1 gaming motherboard for like 130, 140 bucks, US dollars. So something like that. Just make sure that it's backing, that it looks good and that it does what it says it does, that it has support for things like Crossfire and SLI if you're interested in that. Just look at the other things, because for the most part, motherboards aren't going to affect your computer's ability to do anything, save overclocking and SL line crossfire. You also have smaller things like fan support, all of that, but for the most part, if it's a Z170 motherboard, chances are it's going to overclock decent. If you're willing to spend a ton of money for an extra like 200 megahertz or 300 megahertz of overclocking potential, you can do that. But I don't like to spend. I said this in the Walter White build video. I don't like to spend any more than about 170 bucks on 180 bucks. I'd say 200 is like the max. If you're spending more than 200 bucks on a Z170 motherboard, chances are you're just doing it because it looks good. No, most of the time. So I wouldn't spend any more than that on a Z170 motherboard. Is a 12 millisecond monitor good for gaming? No, I would go for something more around the realm of like 5 milliseconds. So you're going to see you might see some ghosting even at 5 milliseconds, but at 12 milliseconds, I pretty much guarantee you're going to see a bit of ghosting on the screen when you're gaming, especially if you're moving around a lot, moving quickly, you'll see that. Is a 1080p 144 hertz monitor good? Yeah, if you want to game in 1080p, pretty good. This guy says, I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm a console person. His name's Greg too, so you guys can try to convert him. Good luck. Let's see. How much will the FX 8350 bottleneck the 1070? Well, I don't know. I know how much it'll bottleneck an FX 6300, but I don't know how much it'll bottleneck an FX 83, pile driver 88 core variant. So I don't know. That'd be interesting. I might have to do that. I'm kind of curious myself. If you overclock the FX 8300, 8350 high enough, I'm sure you can reduce that amount of CPU bottleneck. So we'll see. Razer Blade Stealth has a relatively low price. It actually, and that's one of the reasons why I was looking at the Razer Blade Stealth, because it does have, it is a competitive price point. But one thing I wanted to point out about that one in particular, and I'll pull this up too, is it only comes with a 128 gigabyte SSD. So that's kind of a problem. Let's see. This is it right here. Yeah, 128 gig. I don't know if it's PCIe. Yeah, so it's not even an M.2 SSD, but yeah, only 128 gigabytes. That's kind of low. I mean, you look at Windows itself, it's gonna take up a good chunk of that. Any software editing programs, I'm definitely gonna have Adobe Premiere on there. That's what I use. So that's gonna take up a good chunk of space. If I decide to put any like light games on this, I wouldn't recommend gaming on this laptop because it doesn't have a dedicated graphics card or dedicated GPU. But there's a couch in there that's super loud. Anyway, it's really annoying. Yeah, I have been looking at this one. Honestly, I'm pretty tied up in this one. Just not only because it has what I want, it has the i7, even though it's a dual core hyper threaded. But I like the RGB keyboard layout. It's nice and thin. It has an HDMI port, which is actually a big deal to me. It's got the Thunderbolt 3.1. The call quality, like the video calling, all of that, like the audio sounds super crisp. Good video, good camera on the laptop from what I've seen. So yeah, that's one that I've been debating getting. So if I purchase one, it's going to be within the next week or two. I also ordered a lot of foam. Let's see if I can find that. So I know a lot of you were telling me that I should have gone with the towels to cover the walls, the DIY perks video that you guys linked to me. A lot of you linked that to me. I appreciate that. Thank you for sending that to me. That was actually a really good video. The only concern I have about that is I'm not sure if this is not what. Oh, that's under computers, that's why. The only concern I have is I'm not sure how heavy that's going to be and if that's going to stick on the wall with like some, like 3M tape. So what I decided to do was go with acoustic foam. Now, I don't think this is, I'm trying to find the one that I purchased. It looked just like this, but I got 2-inch thick, which I know is going to be a lot better than 1-inch thick. Acoustic foam, not going to be the best when it comes to dampening that echo, but it's going to be better than what I have currently, which is nothing. And I don't have to keep the mic so close to my face, so I can turn up the gain a little bit more. But this is what I purchased. I don't think I paid this. I think I paid like $28 for mine. But this is almost exactly what it looks like. I got black and red because black and red are school colors here. So it looks like I'm patriotic-ish. So yeah, that's nice. That's kind of a close up what they look like. So and I also bought a lot of 3M tape. And I also bought this cable here, this USB, what is it called? I forget what it's called. The connector that I use for the Yeti to connect it to the computer Bought a longer one of those because this thing right now is like stretched to its limit. Like it's almost bending the monitor that it's wrapped around. So I got one of those too. But yeah, that is what I purchased for the studio. And I'm excited to set all that stuff up. I'll be sure to do a video on that before and after so you guys can hear what it sounds like before and whether or not the foam works. I'm sure it'll work to a degree, but is it worth whatever? I think I paid like 30 bucks for it. Is it worth what I paid for 24 of those wedges? So we'll see. Headphones or speakers. I'm a speaker guy. I don't like putting on headphones. I never really have. I'm sure I'll have to convert eventually, but I like hearing. I don't know. I like being able to hear everything, including what's not coming through the speakers. So when I have headphones on, I'm like wrapped up in the moment. You know, like if my phone goes off, I can't hear it. If someone calls me from another room, I can't hear that. So I like being aware, and I can't really do that with headphones. So that's why I go with surround sound system that I have. It's a Dell 5.1 system. People have been asking me about it. I have no idea what it is, what it's called, but it's a Dell 5.1 system. I have a little sub down there too, probably like a little 6-inch sub or something. Mini HDMI ports are dumb. Yeah, no, that's really dumb. That's one of the reasons why the Razer Blade had a full HDMI port. So that was one of the reasons why I was really into that, because all I use is regular HDMI. I bought a mini HDMI or the micro HDMI port cable, and it broke like within 2 weeks. I'm pretty sure it was just cheaply made. I made that mistake. Let's see. I have 80 bucks to spend on the CPU cooling. What should I get? Well, do you want to go with an AIO? Or do you want to go with air cooling? If you go with air cooling, you can save a good chunk of that change and put it somewhere else or just pocket it. I would say if you wanted to go with air cooling, you could buy something for like 40 bucks that would be super efficient and super quiet, and then save the extra 40 bucks or buy an SSD for a quicker boot times, something like that. I recommend an SSD, by the way, in almost every rig. I can't think of a computer that doesn't deserve an SSD, even if it's just like super generic, super cheap. Put an SSD in there, it's going to make a huge difference. Even McLovin, who's never messed with PCs before, he saw what the computer did that we built him with just a hard drive when it booted from that hard drive, which was from a previous video. And then he saw what the computer did with the SSD, and it changed his life. So I recommend an SSD in almost all cases. Let's see. Yeah, Shadow Rock Pro 3. Ooh, yeah, that's expensive, 95 bucks. I wouldn't pay anywhere around 100 bucks for an air cooler. That makes no sense to me. Don't do it. You're gonna it might look really good. It might be super quiet, but it's not something that I think is justified. Let's see. What do you think about fasting? Should turn on every game? Depends on the game. Corsair H60 is a good one. I've owned the Corsair H90 before. That was a 140 millimeter rad. That did well. I actually bought it refurbished, and it still worked fine. The Cryorig H7 is also a great cooler. I need to contact them again. I want them to send an H7 because when I did that comparison with the Hyper 212 Evo, like different designs. I understand that. I know why you guys said what you said. So I want to do an H7 versus a Hyper 212 Evo. So you're paying about 10 bucks more, 15 bucks more for the H7, but I am aware that the H7 is one of the best air coolers for the price. So that'll be an interesting mashup there. Let's see. M.2 is very worth it if you go for the fast one. Yeah, this is something that I guess I should address too. So M.2, yeah, it's a lot faster. I mean, you can get speeds up to 1 gigabyte per second, like super fast data transfer rates, like insanely fast. And in those cases, yeah, you're going to notice the difference between M.2 and a regular old SATA SSD. But when it comes to like boot times and stuff, like if you just want to put like an operating system on an SSD, like a 128 gig SSD or a 128 gig M.2 slot, which is about, it depends on what you buy and where you buy it, but it's going to be a significant chunk of change more expensive than the SSD, the SATA SSD. You're not going to notice a huge difference in boot times there. I don't think that you should consider M.2 unless you're building a computer like that's just all out, like hardcore. In that case, yeah, you're not going to be hurting anything. You're not going to be hurting your budget either, I presume, by going with M.2. Let's see. My computer keeps blue screening. What should I do? Not only that, if I change the graphics, the game gets buggy. Why? Oh, I have no idea, man. That's not good. So if you're getting some blue screens, what I would do is read the error codes on the bottom. Usually you get some error codes for the blue screens of death. and Google those. That'll tell you right there what's causing the problem. Um, Again, M.2, like I would not recommend an M.2 to 95% of computer builders. I wouldn't do it. Um, Not justified in my experience with M.2s, not justified for what you're paying. And on top of that, if you have a case like an S340, this is just me being me, the SATA SSD is going to look really good on top of that on top of that basement. So yeah, that's another thing to consider. M.2s just go directly onto the motherboard. I mean, that's why they're faster. It's like direct. But with the SATA SSD, you have something aesthetically to consider. But with an M.2 slot, you're going to have like a piece of green PCB sticking out of your motherboard. In my case, with a white PCB for a motherboard, having a green M.2 slot sticking on the bottom of that, it's going to look really dorky. So again, a lot of things to consider. But for speed, again, 95% of computer builds, I wouldn't recommend M.2. Is GTX 960 still a good GPU? I mean, yeah, it's a good GPU, but here's the problem. And I'll show you guys this too. Let's swap over. Okay, so let's go to Newegg, and let's do, let's see. Well, yeah, let's go to Newegg. Okay, GTX 960. I'm curious. I haven't looked at these prices recently. Okay, so they've come down, not a lot. Let's see. $166. That's only a 2 gig 960. I mean, you're probably only going to use around 2.5 gigs anyway. Not many of them up for sale anymore. No, I would not recommend a GTX 960. Just from what I'm seeing on Newegg. Straight up, I would not recommend it. So there you go. There's your answer to your question. That's what I would do. Not purchase one. What are your thoughts on laptops with Pascal graphics? Again, I discussed it earlier. Well, I didn't really discuss it earlier, actually, so I'm glad you asked that again. If you can get them for good prices, I mean, heck yeah, like full-on Pascal desktop-grade GPUs in laptops, that's pretty awesome. Now, if you can pair that with something like an i7-6700Q, which is a true quad-core laptop-grade processor, then you're gonna have a really sweet system, a really sweet portable system, which is kind of the point of laptops. So I'm interested to see how the prices will kind of vary with those. I'm sure you can get something like a 1060 and something like an i7-6500U for around $1,300, $1,400. I don't know. I wouldn't pay any more than that. But if you can find them cheaper than that, around $1,000, that's pretty good. It's a pretty good price. Let's see. Get an i5 for gaming. Yeah, I mean, get an i5 for gaming. That's like, yeah, i5 for gaming, straight up. I've already discussed that, but get an i5 for gaming. Yeah, good point, Matt. Be aware of the thermal throttling with the big laptops. So having Pascal GPUs in laptops is a great thing, but remember, these are desktop GPUs, okay? As far as I'm concerned, Pascal GPU, they're desktop grade. They're going to get hot, and you have to have a laptop cooling system that's efficient enough to be able to disperse a lot of that heat, especially from those high TDP GPUs. I mean, Pascal's noticeably more efficient, and you will see a slight decrease in thermals over time, or not over time, but just in general with Pascal's over something like Maxwell, but they're still going to be producing a lot of heat, and they're in a small space in laptops. So I would keep in mind the fact that you might experience thermal throttling, especially with the GPU, if you decide to play some heavy-duty games on that kind of laptop, which you could certainly do. According to the spec sheet, you could play some hardcore games, AAA titles in 1080, 1440p, even maybe QHD+, with that setup. So that's something to consider, but also consider, you're right, Matt, that thermal throttling potential. That is something that I would not overlook, because you might be disappointed by what you see. Let's see. Air cooling versus liquid cooling. I have a video covering that. It's an old one. I see the Kingwin comment too. I'm going to answer that. So air cooling is safer. In some cases, it's quieter. It's cheaper. Okay, those are three huge points to argue for air cooling. But if you have the budget for an AIO and you're interested in the possibility of having a quieter system than an air cooler, especially under load, if you can set your radiator fans to be fairly quiet, even when your pump is working hardcore under some intense tasks, AIOs are worth it, I would say, but I wouldn't go any further than AIOs. Custom water loops are something that 99.9% of people shouldn't consider. even though a lot more will do it just because it looks cool. Um, but I would say I'm just throwing percentages out here just vaguely, but like 75% of people who build computers should just go with AI or with air coolers. Sorry, just go with air coolers. Water coolers they're a totally different beast. If one dies, you could experience some heavy. I had a friend who purchased an H60, Corsair H60, which we just talked about, and he said he'd boot up his computer, and then about 10 seconds into the boot, his computer would just shut back off. And I said, that sounds a little strange. Are you getting any blue screens of death or anything? He's like, no, it just turns off. I said, well, how about right when you we talked about this earlier. Anyway, he had a basically a dead pump. The pump wasn't circulating water, so the CPU was getting super hot, especially when it initially boots and it's loading all these programs, and the heat from the CPU wasn't being dissipated properly because the water wasn't moving in the water loop. So I told him, I was like, straight up, that sounds like a dead pump, dude. He's like, oh yeah, and then we switched back to his stock cooler, the little cheap Intel one that I'm sure didn't have a copper slug in it because it's a Skylake processor. And he said, yep, working fine now. It's just a lot louder. So yeah, it depends on the air cooler, but you could end up with a quieter system overall, even if you opt for air cooling over an AIO. So play around with your budget, see what you are willing to buy, and what you're willing to compromise on. What do you think about the R9 Fury for $300? Yeah, so I posted a picture of that on Twitter. I think it was a little more expensive, $300 at the time, but I know the prices have come down even more. They've come down even more since then. So an R9 Fury is a really good card, right? HBM, is that Fury X? I don't know if it was the Fury or the Fury X. If it was the Fury X, it's a really good. I think it's just R9 Fury. But that kind of card for $300, I would pick that over the RX 480 any day of the week. So even if you're paying $50-$60 more, buy that card over the RX 480. That's what I would do. So that's just my opinion on that. And I have seen. I haven't owned an R9 Fury, but I've seen the benchmarks from them. You wouldn't regret it. Are you a memer, Greg? I don't know. Memer? Like, does that mean like make memes? I don't know. That answers your question. Probably not then. Plans for the Veloster Turbo. Yeah, that car is kind of like it's a good car. It's a really good car, and it's faster than I thought it would be. But it's front wheel drive. It's got an open diff. You can hear the turbo. It spools up, and it's actually quite loud, surprisingly, for a stock turbo with no blow-off valve. But it's actually a decent car. I leased it, so I don't actually technically own it, but I would be willing to do reviews on it if you guys be interested in that. I'm sure a lot of you are going to rip on it just because it's not like a Subaru WRX wagon or something, but whatever. If you guys want to see videos on it, let me know on Twitter, and I'll take that to heart and see if we can put together a few videos, at least have some fun in the thing, or just show you around, because it is my first official car. That's the first one that I've ever been able to afford on my own. So yeah. Let's see. I don't know. Some guy said i7 4790 95 degrees. I hope that's an i7 4790K at 95 degrees, not an i7 4790 non-K skew. Because if it is, then that's really not good. But you like not have a cooler on the thing. Yeah, I might want to check that out. Let's see. Bought a new laptop without an SSD. Bought an M.2 PCIe SSD. I have only one extra slot for SATA. Whoops. Yeah. No, I lost this. I'm trying to follow these comments. But in total, 3 slots for PM2. Dude, that's on you, man. I don't know what else to tell you on that. Not gonna get into politics on this channel because I don't want I saw that gay marriage comment. I'm not gonna get into politics. That's not my goal. You might find out where I stand in political issues, but I will not personally address them or express my views of them on this channel. Science and politics are like blood and water. They don't mix. So, well, they can. You can use science to back up your political beliefs, but I would never introduce politics into this channel. My nationality, I am Hispanic. I am of Hispanic origin. My dad is Spanish from Spain, and my mom is like a mix of all kinds of stuff. So I'm technically Hispanic, one half Hispanic and one half white. I don't know, German, Black Irish, a few other things in there. But yeah, I am Hispanic. There's an H by my ethnicity, even though my race is still white, W. So yeah. Let's see. Hi. I see those. Let's see. Kingwin. Oh, I saw the Kingwin thing. Yeah, I've used Kingwin before. It worked for me. Like I don't know to like I'm not Microsoft. I don't know how Microsoft looks at Kingwin. I'm sure they don't look at them with like the best from the best perspective. But it's worked for me in the past. It is a solution. It's something you consider. I have recommended it in the past because it did work for me at the time. Um, is that something that I would just say that would be set in stone? Like, yeah, you should always use Kingwin for Windows? Probably not. I mean, I don't know if I can even technically say that on YouTube, but I've used it and it's worked. So that's really all I can say about Kingwin. The legality of it, that's a whole different beast that I'm not well enough informed about nor motivated enough to argue about. Mini ITX or micro ATX, and why depends on what you're going for. If you want to put it somewhere like in a compact space, if you want like a home theater PC or something like that, I would go with an ITX. The disadvantages of an ITX are that you only have in most cases, well, in all cases, pretty much, one PCIe slot. So usually 16x slot on the bottom. That's it. You can't put anything else in there. So if the motherboard doesn't support Wi-Fi or anything else like that, then you're kind of out of luck unless there's a space to add a Wi-Fi card that's not on doesn't take up a PCIe slot. So keep those things in mind. There are compromises that you're making with an ITX case, but there are also compromises with the micro ATX case in the sense that it's not going to be as compact. So cases that strictly support mini IT or micro ATX, there aren't many cases that are designed specifically for micro ATX. So chances are you're going to buy something like an S340, put a micro ATX motherboard in it. It's going to look a little weird because it's not going to take up the whole space, whereas a full size ATX motherboard will do that. I'm looking at my computer when I say that because I'm picturing a micro ATX in there, and that would just look really weird. So I would almost always consider either ITX or full size ATX. Don't Micro ATX is just a weird kind of niche in the middle. Unless it's cheaper significantly, you don't care about looks. Then I would just go for either full size or ITX. Let's see. Oh yeah, eGPUs, so the Razer Core. Okay, so yeah, the ability to hook up like a full-size desktop grade graphics card to something like, in this particular case, the Razer Blade, the Stealth laptop. That's like, I've never really considered that. I don't think I would ever consider purchasing that secondary module to hook up to the laptop. That would just be, I don't know, overkill. I would just game on my regular PC. So the way I see it is, if I'm gonna like if I'm gonna be somewhere where I can't bring my desktop, why am I gonna want to bring that cube thing? I forget what it's called. I'm not even following that kind of stuff. But like, I don't want to bring that around with a full size desktop GPU. I'd want to just bring around my laptop only, which is why Pascal full size or full desktop grade Pascal GPUs in laptops is a super cool idea and a super cool implementation, because that eliminates the need for that kind of module, that Stealth, the Razer Blade, that Razer themselves were counting on with those laptops. Because the Razers themselves, those new blades, are not gaming laptops. They're really not. They're called gaming laptops. Someone just like peeled out outside. They're called gaming laptops, but they're not gaming laptops until the desktop GPUs are hooked up to them, and then that kind of just defeats the point for me. So I wouldn't buy it for the sake of gaming or for buying that secondary module. I keep calling it that because I have no idea what it is. But yeah, let's see. Accident. I don't know if it was an accident. I didn't hear any. I was waiting for like a loud metal crash sound, but I didn't hear that. So, did you guys hear that? Did you hear the car? I don't. It was really loud, but it sounded. You know how it's like it's loud, but it sounds far away. That's exactly what it sounded like. Let's see. There's so many of them. Why Hyundai? I don't know. They offered like, that was like one of the best leases that I had ever seen on a brand new car that had every option I wanted. So I didn't have to pay anything down, and my monthly payment's reasonable. Like, it's actually really good. So I kind of did it more for the sake of like saving money in the long run, but at the same time, I mean, it's a good car. I really do like the car. It's nice, and it has leather, sunroof, GPS nav system, turbocharged, like those kinds of things. In most cases, you don't get those with leases. Usually they're just stripped down models, or they're like the hardcore, like full on expensive leases. So I was pleased with what I got in the car in terms of options for the price. And Hyundai just happened to offer the best car that looked decent at the time. So that's why I bought it. Why did you get rid of the entities case? From Leesky. Sorry if I Farrell. I don't know. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. So I got rid of it because I wanted to help Jacob out. You guys know McLovin. He's a cool dude, and I wanted to help him out and spare his budget as much as possible. Because Entity sent me that case for free. So that was like they just said, hey, we'll send this case to you, review it on your channel, and so I did. And then after that, I was kind of just like, yeah, Deep Cool sending the genome. I kind of want to put everything in the genome because I think it'll look a little better with all the white accents around the case and with the frame. So I said, I'll give the entities to Jacob. I'm not going to charge him for it because I didn't have to pay for it. So I gave it to him. And funny you should mention that because I actually have another entities case, the same one, the AI Crystal, in the next room over there. I'm actually going to put it under my TV stand next to that receiver that I showed you guys in the studio tour video when I moved back to Louisiana. I'm going to put it under there and use that as like an HTPC type thing. I might even game on it, so it depends on what I put in there. But yeah, I asked him, I was like, hey, send another one over. I'm going to do a separate video on it, and I'm going to feature it because I think it looks really cool. It's a nice case. I want another one. I'm kind of sad that I gave the first one away. So I have another one in there. It's that good of a case, but I would have bought it. They wouldn't have sent me one. I seriously would have bought it. So that case for the money and for the fact that it has tempered glass on 3 sides. I know there's the NWin. You guys said NWin 303. What was that case? I know these comments are delayed, but you guys said something about NWin 303, and I looked at that. I just didn't like the design of the NWin. It wasn't really my cup of tea. Leather seats suck in Louisiana when it gets hot. Yeah, it gets hot. Yeah, the leather seats are gonna suck in general anywhere where it's hot. That's just the nature of leather. But I can say, in the winter, that leather's gonna feel really good when I turn on them heated seats. Yes, the car does come with heated seats. So yeah, kind of got that covered. Hey, my dude, I just saw author. We gotta ask a question, man. That's not a question. Let's see. Do you know if Shadowplay will work in DirectX 12 games using multi-GPU mode? I have no idea. I know I've done the multi-GPU thing. That's called explicit multi-adapter. So that's where you can basically combine any 2 GPUs that are relatively recent, slot 1, slot 2, whatever config you got in your computer, and run those using DirectX 12 mode. I have noticed that at times Shadowplay hasn't been friendly to DirectX 12 games or vice versa. Like with Total War Warhammer, I wasn't able to film or to initiate Shadowplay recording when I was running the game in DirectX 12 mode, but in DirectX 11 I was. So there's a lot of things that Shadowplay has to improve on, and it looks like from what I've heard since the last video, the new beta of Shadowplay is a huge improvement. So I might have to do a revisit on Shadowplay in the near future to see what those things released in the beta have changed. Let's see, 16 gigabytes or 8 gigabytes of RAM. If you're gaming, for the most part, 8 gigs is fine. 16 gigs I would recommend for content creation, streaming, and all that good stuff. It's getting to the point where now 4 gigs is not enough. You're going to start seeing some frame stutters and stuff, especially in recent games with just 4 gigs of RAM. So 8 gigs, I would recommend. How long have we been doing this chat? It's kind of random. An hour. We've been doing it for about an hour and 15 minutes. I might stop at like 4:30, 4:45. I don't know. I don't want to make this too long and boring for you guys. So yeah, that's kind of where I stand on the whole 8 gig versus 16 gig thing. 16 gigs is just enough for what I do content creation wise, and 8 gigs was plenty for games. I didn't, the games weren't using any more than about 5 or 6 gigabytes of RAM, even the most intensive ones that I was testing. Let's see. 1060. Whoa. Okay, you said you have a 1680 by 1050 monitor. Okay, should I upgrade? Yeah, I would upgrade, dude. Get like a 1080p monitor, 1440p. Get a 1080 ultra wide monitor, something that's a little more modern than that. Especially if you can get it for a good price. So, 390X or Fury X. Well, 390Xs have come down in price a lot, but they get super hot. The Fury X's aren't as bad about that. So, it depends on how much you want to pay. Fury X is clearly the better card, so get the Fury X if you just want to spend more money and get that much more performance out of it. Yeah, so a couple of people saying get 1440p mod. 1440p is going to be a huge step up from 1650 by 1050, whatever you said it was. So yeah. Greg, help. What's the PC you can build for $700? I have no idea. Let's see. I don't know where that comment went. $700. Let's go back to the trusty old PC part picker here. So let's see, 900. Okay, here's one. This is a $900 build that is now $749. Well, again, I don't know why these prices have just disappeared. This will probably come out to about 800. Yeah, well, more than that actually. Um, I don't know if I have any like $700 builds anywhere. Let's see. Okay, so if you want to build something with an i5, I'd recommend an i5 at that price. So an i5, get a decent like 1060, something along those lines. You can get yourself an SSD for quick boot times and get a general 1 terabyte hard drive for game storage. Get yourself some decent memory. You can get something better than this, I'm sure, with the budget. And then if you want to overclock, get a Z170 motherboard and a decent cooler, or you can use a stock cooler. In this case, I opted for the stock cooler because this was a bare bones rig, but add another 50, 60 bucks for either an AIO or a really, really good air cooler, and you'll be set. I mean, you'll be able to do pretty much anything. Maybe bump this 500 watt to something a little better, maybe 80 plus bronze, 600 watts, something along those lines. Should be around the $700 price range. So for that price, i5 in almost all cases. And now, you guys are probably wondering why I keep recommending Intel processors. Until Zen comes out and I get my hands on Zen, or I see some reliable reviews about Zen, I will not be recommending any more pile driver CPUs. It's just not going to happen. I did the last time I recommended one was in the i3-6100 versus FX 8300 video, but that was because, just objectively speaking, the 8300 was the better processor and was likely going to be the better processor in content creation thanks to the greater number of threads. But at this point, if anyone says, should I get an FX processor or, I don't know, an i3, i5, i7, especially if they're around the same price, I'm just going to say Intel until I see Zen and I see how good Zen is, really, because I'm really curious. I showed a $900 PC quickly, Christian. It's go back, rewind a little bit. I showed it just a little bit, 900 bucks. It dropped to 749. So just add a few things to that. Let's see. I'm reading as quick as possible. I've never read this fast before. Yo, Greg, will 780 Ti plus Q6600 plus 4 gigs of RAM work for GTA 5? Yeah, it would work. Q6600 is good if you can overclock it decently. You're going to see some huge gains with the 6600 if you do overclock it. And then so somewhere around like 3.4 gigahertz. If you can get it around 3.4 gigahertz, you'll be fine. And then try to bump the 4 gigs to 8 gigs. That's something else I'd recommend. Again, 4 gigs of RAM is like, you're scraping the bottom of the barrel when it comes to AAA titles. I wouldn't recommend 4 gigs for that kind of game. So 8 gigs, 780 Ti will run that game just fine. Let's see. i7 5820K plus 1080. This goes back to what I said in my Walter White build video. I would, if you want to go with an i7, I would stick with the 6700K, especially if you're deciding between that and a 5820K. Just stay with Skylake, stay with the Z170 platform. You're going to be just fine. You'll still be able to content create just fine, and your games will run, in most cases, a bit better than they will with the 5820K, thanks to stronger single-core performance with the i7 6700K. Let's see. Do you speak Spanish? No, I really don't speak Spanish. I really never dedicated a large chunk of my life to learn that language. Even my dad doesn't speak very much Spanish, so that's probably why I don't. It's just not something that we commonly use around the house, and my mom certainly doesn't speak it, so it's just kind of English. That's pretty much all it's been. Is the 750 Ti still good? Yeah, if you want a game in like just 1080p and you want to make some compromises in some settings. I mean, even if you pair it with something like an i5 6500, 750 Ti is going to definitely be your bottleneck in a lot of cases. So try to bump that up. Go for something like a 950, 960, or jump into the newer platform or the newer architectures. So 470, 480 on AMD side, or a 1060, or even a 1050 when the 1050, if the 1050 is released soon. Best GPU for 1080p gaming. A mechanical keyboard's worth it. I don't know. Mechanical keyboards are nice. I like this keyboard. The one that Aki sent me is a really nice keyboard. I like the feel of it. It's loud, but that's the compromise I'm willing to make for with blue switches. But I don't know. It just comes down to preference. Every now and then I switch back to this keyboard. It's one I have in my lap right now. I like this one because it's wireless. And it's just a little membrane keyboard. Well, that was really loud. I'm super sorry about that. But I like to use this one because it's wireless and I can just walk around with it and it's not bulky or loud. But it just depends. It's going to be up to you what you really like. Play with one, kind of get the feel for it, and then just make your mind up then. I can't choose for you. It's gonna depend on what you think about mechanicals. Let's see. Yeah, just try one. Like I said, yeah, Murder Dog. Just try one, and you'll know right away if you like mechanicals or not. Like you'll push the key and you'll be like, whoa, that feels super weird, especially if all you're used to is membrane keyboards. I was like this too for a while. You'll push down a key on a mechanical keyboard, and you will feel that key. If it's a blue or brown switch, you'll feel it engage. Like you feel it. It's just, are you feeling it? Like like McLevin. I just thought of that randomly, but it's just a different feeling overall, and you'll know right away if you like it or not. So base your decision on, I would say, your gut instinct. It is mechanicals loud. That's a compromise that you've got to be willing to make if you decide to go with a mechanical keyboard. Let's see, MSI GTX 1060 or EVGA Superclock. I think both are great brands. I've owned cards from both lineups, from not from the Pascal lineup, but from Maxwell's lineup, and they're both great. I mean, it's something that you really aren't going to know unless you have both of them side by side and people are comparing them, saying this one gets this loud, this one is this one just looks better in person, or this one has more GPU sag, graphics card sag, in general, like if that's a big deal to you, which it is to me. Those kinds of things you kind of have to just eyeball from the pictures, which is really hard to do, but you'll be perfectly fine with either brand. There are people who are like diehard MSI fans or, only EVGA fans, but either one's great. I've owned both. I can safely say that I'm happy and would be perfectly okay using either of those variants, either of those manufacturers for what I have in my rig currently. How do you fix GPU sag? Well, it's a delicate subject because there are things you could do that are a little unorthodox that could cause some problems later on. You could just be like AMD and just have like a little slit that your card can slide into, and that fixes GPU sag. I have that in my AMD AI Crystal video. So if other cases implemented that, like if NZXT did that on like their little bar here, the little cable shroud that covers the cable routing, if they put like little grooves into there for the circuit board, the PCBs of the cards to slide into to hold them up, that would be super awesome. And that's a quick, simple fix for graphics card sag. You might have a little sag on the front corner, but it's not going to be anywhere near as much as it usually is. Another thing you could do, I've seen people do this before. I've never tried it. I probably won't ever try it. Is you can heat up the back plate if your card comes with a back plate and slightly bend it. So the back plate, the side of the back plate that's closest to the back of your computer, you leave flat, and then you bend this side that faces the front of your case, you slightly bend it up, and then you secure the backplate back onto the PCB, and it kind of bends your whole card up a little bit, because your PCB will bend even if it's sagging down. Your PCB is bending, so it's okay for it to bend slightly, but if it's bending slightly upward, your card will just kind of gradually readjust itself to a flat plane. So that's another solution. That's like a hardcore solution if you're really trying to tackle that sag, but I would not recommend that under most cases unless you're super confident about it. Save up for a 1070, you're going to get a 1060 for 1080p, 60 hertz for 2 years. Benz, I can't answer that question for you. Do you like 1080p gaming? You're comfortable with it? Are you comfortable with it for the next 2 years? That's gonna depend on your preference. I can't answer that for you. Let's see. I'll be completely honest. A lot of these longer comments, I can't really keep up with. If you type like a paragraph on here, like 3 or 4 sentences in the comment chain, I'm not gonna read it. I just can't do it. They're moving too quick, and I don't have time to just skim through it. Let's see, 960M worth it. 960M, it's better than not having a mobile GPU, dedicated GPU, period. So if it's got something like that in there and you're not paying a super huge premium for it, you'll see huge differences. Let's see. Greg, say hi to me, please. Ian Munez, how you doing? How you doing, man? Good to hi. Let's see. Can you recommend a $600 gaming PC build? $600, you can pretty much work like a cheap i5 into there. I've already talked about this. Scroll back in the video, go back to the stuff that's not live. I talked about that. You can build a PC for around $600 with an i5 if you're willing to make some other compromises. But it is possible. Go with the i5. You won't regret it. Let's see. Yeah, I'm live, DJ Hero Master. The camera in the back's an FC1000 Panasonic Lumix. That's the one I use for the channel. I know I've said I'm gonna make a video on it, but I haven't done that yet. So give me a few days, and I'll try to get that one up. Let's see. Portuguese answer? No, it's Spanish, and so it's from Spain. Next door. You were really close, but I have heritage from Spain, so right next door. Let's see. Excited for Zen? No, not really. I mean, from what I've seen so far, it's not going to be much different than Haswell or Skylake, and that's kind of disappointing, being that Zen's going to be released a lot later than both Skylake and definitely Haswell, from what I've seen so far. And I would be open to somebody proving me wrong, or to Zen itself proving me wrong, but from what I've seen so far, I'm not really excited about it. i5 6400 good for gaming. Again, i5 any i5 is good for gaming, much better than an i3, as I've proven in a few videos. Even if it's a lower clocked i5, like a 6400, if that bothers you and you're not willing to spend the extra 10 $20 on a higher stock clock i5, just spend the extra money on a Z170 motherboard and base clock overclock it. It's really not that hard to do, and you can still do that. It's 100% safe, as long as you flash the correct BIOS. But yeah, you can do that. Consider that. Let's see. What are your audio settings on your Yeti and in Windows? Let's see. I'm using Cardioid, so I'm sure if I came over here, you wouldn't be able to hear me very much. But it's over here. Let's see. Gain is on about 20%. It's still on the left side, so by good ways. So it's about 20% gain, which I had to turn down significantly. I usually have it at like 50 or 60% gain when it's overhead, when it's further away. But because it's so close and because this room is so echoey, I had to turn down the gain and move it closer to my face so that you guys wouldn't hear that echo. I'd rather you see the mic in the camera shot like completely, rather than you guys having to listen to echoes. So that's annoying to me. I know it's annoying to you too. Let's see. Will Vulkan place AMD ahead in the game? Well, yeah, it's already starting to do that. That's what I've seen. I haven't tested Vulkan myself, but from what I've seen, Vulkan is definitely giving an edge to AMD. So yeah, it's just going to come down to whether or not more titles are going to support Vulkan, are going to be open for that API. It's nothing we can really control. It's what special interests and big corporations control. So we'll see if DirectX 12 keeps ahead in terms of how many games support or are built around that platform, but it's going to depend. I mean, it's just going to depend on what games and what titles support what, and if it happens to be in 10 years that more titles are supported by Vulkan, or whatever ends up being the next succession of Vulkan, then at this rate, looks like AMD is going to have the edge for quite a while. So consider that. Let's see. Good gaming PC, $1,000-$1,200. Get an i5 6600K, overclock the crap out of it. Put like a 1060 or 1070 in there, or two RX 480s if you're into Crossfire. I don't recommend that. I'd rather just get a single graphics card. But yeah, so 1070, i5 6600K. Buy a nice case, make things look pretty. Boom. There's $1,000-$1,200. Let's see. Would you like to participate in Scrapyard Wars? Yeah, I think that'd be really cool. I doubt they would invite me to Scrapyard Wars or whatever anyone else does on their bigger channels in that sense. But yeah, like if Linus called me tomorrow and said, hey, would you like to do an episode of Scrapyard Wars? Come out to Canada or Vancouver? Yeah, I mean, yeah, that'd be awesome. I'd really like to do that. But I don't think that I have enough exposure right now to that. I don't think that would be mutually beneficial, is what I'm trying to say, because I think it'll help my channel out a lot because I'll get exposure on a huge platform, but it's not really going to help Linus out. They're going to be like, who's this guy? Who's Science Studio? So I think I have a ways to go before I'm ever considered for something of that caliber. Let's see. GTX 1070 versus 1060 for 1080p. Okay, 1060 is your sweet spot for 1080p. If you buy a 1070 for just 1080p gaming, you've got to be crazy, or you've got to be willing to throw on so much like multi-sampling, anti-aliasing that it's going to look like a 4K image on your 1080p monitor. I would never, in my opinion, I don't think you should ever buy a 1070 just for 1080p. So 1440p is going to be the sweet spot for 1080 for the 1070. It's too many like 1080s, 1070ps. I don't know why Nvidia did that. Like, come on, the GTX 1080 went for like 1080p and 1070. Like, the whole naming scheme, I think, just needs to change from numbers. That I know it's easy for people to be able to relate. Well, 1060 is obviously better than the 960 because there's a 10 in front of the 60 versus a 9. But I don't know. That's just marketing. Let's see. Yeah, if you guys like make some kind of petition to put me on that scrapyard, that would be awesome. But I don't really think I wouldn't waste your time with it, you guys. 1070 is like a 980. It really is. I've had both a 980 Ti and a 1070, and they're both like identical. I've actually tested both head to head, and they're almost exactly the same. So you're really only going to consider a 1070 over the 980 Ti because the 1070 is a bit more efficient. You're going to have more up-to-date drivers, more better optimized drivers, I should say. And then on top of that, probably won't be as loud, won't get as hot. That's just the consequence of Pascal over Maxwell. Let's see. We already talked about M.2 versus SSD. That's earlier on in the video. I have no idea when we talked about it, but it's earlier on. What overclock did you reach on your 980 Ti? That overclock was 1531 megahertz. If I went to 1532 megahertz, I even tried overclocking it myself. It would like graphics card drivers would crash. So it was stubborn, but it was maxed out. Like I didn't have to tweak anything. 1531, boom. That's as high as I've ever seen anyone ever get a 980 Ti on air. So I was impressed with it. That was the Gold Edition MSI 980 Ti. Let's see. When do you think the 1070 price would go down? Probably not for the next at least 6 months, maybe a year, unless Nvidia comes out with some other revised version of a 1070, like a 1070 Ti, which is I don't think ever that's never happened for the 70 series. I don't think recently anyway. I can't really see the price going down by very much at all. So don't get your hopes up. It's probably going to stay around 400, 450 bucks. You might find some sales every now and then, but the overall price on average is not going to drop below 400 bucks for at least, I would say safely, the next 6 months to probably a year. And then by then you're going to have a lot more competition, likely from AMD. So maybe that's when the 6-month period ends. AMD releases their higher end GPUs to compete with the 1070 and 1080. Then we might see some price competition. But for now, 400, 450 bucks, you expect to pay that for a good while. Let's see. Worth upgrading from EVGA 970 to GTX 1060. Unless you can get a really good return on your 970, just stick with the 970. The 1060 is going to be, you might see some improvements, but unless you can, like, let's say you paid, and I assume you bought your 970 brand new. Let's say you paid $300 for your 970, that was a good price back in the day, right? So 970, if you can sell that card for about $220, $200, which you might be able to, then yeah, I'd say that you can probably work in an upgrade. But if you're not going to get but like $150 and you're going to eat $100 just for the sake of upgrading to a 1060, I don't think that's worth it. So it depends on what you get return wise for your 970. That would determine whether or not your 1060 upgrade is justifiable, in my opinion. Why don't you stream games too? I don't know. I don't like streaming games because it's just, there's so many things in games that are kind of boring that go on. Like when I'm in GTA, I'm like chasing after some kid. I don't want, I just absolutely trash kids in GTA 5. That's like all I do in the game. I go online, find some kids and just start killing them as much as I can. That's pretty much all I do. But in between those kinds of games, at least for the games I play, even in like Black Ops 3, there's some dead spots, and I don't want it to just be like, oh, there's nothing going on in this part, and then people sign off because it's boring at times. I think if you can properly edit gameplay footage and reactions on camera, which I guess we're going to start doing now in Entertainment Studio because you guys wanted to see us on camera. I'll have to get Jacob to buy. Jacob needs to buy a webcam, and then we'll be able to do that. I'm using the 920 right now, by the way, from Logitech. But yeah, if he's willing to do that, and then we can post our reactions. But I don't think that I'm going to switch to. I don't think I'm going to switch to what was I going to say? Live streaming, because that's really not. That's just boring. I haven't watched live stream games before. It's just boring. I sign off. Let's see. Thank you, Aaron. I appreciate it. Kind words. This is, like I said, this is my first official live stream on my own. I know it looks super unprofessional. It's just me on camera for the most part, but I do appreciate you guys watching. We have about 500 viewers, so that's really cool. Thanks for sticking around. I know a lot of people signed off. It's been a while, but I do appreciate you guys jumping on to the live session for being so interactive on Twitter. That is awesome. You guys have you've really made that page explode. And I know a lot of people get upset when I try to push for things like Twitter, for people to do things via Twitter on with my handle, and that's because there are a lot of, and I'll be completely honest with you, there are very prominent financial benefits to having an active social media account, especially when you link it with something like YouTube. So it's something that's really that I expect will help me out later on. It doesn't help me out now like at all. It gets me a little bit of exposure, but that's really it. As long as this channel continues to grow, I do expect that Twitter will become a very effective platform for me to market on and to say, hey guys, check this out. This is a sponsored thing, but it's a really cool video, stuff like that. If you don't want to watch it, it's fine. You don't have to click on the link, but it's something that I can use to show something, but then I don't have to make a video on it. So if you don't want to see whatever I'm advertising or showing off, you don't have to click on the link. But if I make a video on it, you have to click on the video to see what it's about, and then you'll end up giving me hate mail or something. So it's just an effective tool. It's an effective platform. And that's why I'm trying to emphasize it now, because the channel is at a stage in its life where social media is beginning to take hold. And that's why I push for that. That's why I do Twitter-based giveaways and stuff. It's just, it really is a powerful platform for someone in my position. And especially for people who have 4 or 5 times the number of subscribers I do, and even more than that. Let's see. I guess I'll answer, what time is it? 4:40. I guess I'll answer like 3 more questions. And then I didn't even like leave any water here. My mouth is so dry. So I guess I'll answer like 3 more questions. Make them good questions, folks. Good questions. And then I'll call it a day. And I'll upload the finalized, I guess I might upload the whole thing on YouTube. I don't know if it's even going to do that now. But I have been recording this whole session. So I will post this later on. Let's see. i3 6300 for gaming 1080p. Yeah, i3s are good for 1080p. I don't recommend them for the sake of being future proof, but you can make it work with an i3. Let's see. Do a video with living. Whoa! I can't keep up. NCXT Hue thoughts? No, I don't. I'm not a fan of NCXT Hue. To me, it's too expensive. I'd rather just buy like a $20 cable mod kit from Asus and get like similar kicks out of it. I don't know. You can do a few extra things with Hue Plus, but I'm not willing to pay that much for Hue Plus. It's just an LED strip and like a little programmable box. That's really it. So no, not a fan. Cats or dogs? I would say I don't know. I have both. I really like JJ's my cat. He lives back home, but him and I are really close. He's a cool cat. He's a little strange, but he's cool. And our dogs, of course, dogs give you more attention. In most cases, they're more interactive, more social. But if I had to choose, I'd probably say dogs. Dogs, I think. If I had to choose between a cat and a dog, if they were both the same, I'd choose a dog. Let's see. Opinions on 1080 amp Extreme. That's the Zotac amp, I'm pretty sure. That's like 780, or not 700. Well, it depends. Is that 1080? If it's the 1080 one, it's more expensive. Those are expensive Zotac cards. If they're the best when it comes to cooling and overclocking, then maybe it's justified. But I haven't had my hands on them. They're beefy looking coolers. I think the backplates look a little weird with those yellow accents on them. But yeah. Let's see. What did humans do to deserve dogs? Well, they allowed us to domesticate them. That's really kind of where it started. I mean, all dogs are descendants of wolves, right? So when they were domesticated, that was really how we got the domestic dog now, all your different breeds. So we kind of did it to them, but they allowed us to do it to them. I mean, picture that, trying to tame a wolf. Like the first ever human to look at a wolf and say, I'm going to domesticate the crap out of that. Like, come on. Like, the wolf, it's a wolf. Like, I don't even know how that started, but it happened, obviously. I mean, that's what it looks like happened. So, and that there's science to back that up. So somehow they pulled it off. But I would not have wanted to have been one of those early settlers to try to domesticate a wolf. Opinions on the 400C, great case. It's a really good case. I do like the swing out window. That is perfect. I think the one thing that would make it better, I don't like the basement, how the basement's kind of like compartmentalized. It's cool in a respect, but I wish it was just like a flat basement, just like the S340 is in the P400. And also, if they made that glass, or that acrylic door, if they made that out of tempered glass, that would be the icing on the cake, and it would be like the best case ever. So, but it would be more expensive too, in which case I'd have to reevaluate my opinions of it. So yeah, we'll see. Do you use Linux? No, I don't like Linux. I've used Linux before. I used Linux to I had a Chromebook, and I put Linux on the Chromebook, and there's a lot of different ways to do that. But With my experience with Linux, I mean, I'm just not a big programmer. I'm not a big I don't like having to learn how to write in a different language for the sake of using an operating system. So that's just not really for me. Okay, let's do one more. Yeah, I know, Chromebook. Yeah, I know. Give me the hate. I I was on a super strict budget, and I just decided that I was gonna buy a Chromebook, and then I realized that that was a terrible mistake. um, this guy says, "Please answer. I'm forced to get." I just missed it. Where was the please answer? Where was it? Please answer. I'm forced to get a 6800K over 6700K because of my motherboard, which is X99. Why is this? What's it? You guys can help him out. It's a different chipset, different socket. Yeah, totally different. All right, folks. Let's see. Mac OS. Not a big fan of Apple. Just never really been. I've owned iPhones. I've used an iPhone. I like iMessage. That's a cool thing about iPhones is iMessage, but that's really about as far as it goes. It's a clean UI, but it's a totally different experience. And every time I go back to Android, I feel like I've been set free. So that's just my preference there. All right, folks. Yeah, I know Chromebook. Give me the hate for it. I didn't like Chromebook. All right, so I'm gonna call it a day. You guys are signing off too, so I know it's been a while. All right, so thanks for checking out the live stream, the first ever official done by me live stream on Science Studio, and I'm gonna get better at this. I'm gonna have some cool backgrounds and stuff. I'll make my transitions a bit more smooth, kind of better than that. So that's stuff you guys can expect to see in the future. If you like the live stream, be sure to let me know. I'll have the finalized product up on YouTube very soon. This is Science Studio, guys. Thanks for asking your questions. Thanks for learning with us. All right, now I have to figure out how to stop this live stream. Let's see. I think I hit stop. All right, here.